I still remember the first time I saw him. It's strange how one single glance can change the direction of your life forever. My brother had brought him over for dinner, said he was an old friend from college. His name was Tony. Tall, confident, charming in that effortless way men sometimes are when they know exactly how to look at you. He had that smile, the kind that made you forget what you were saying halfway through your sentence. From that very first night, something inside me shifted. I caught myself laughing more than I usually did. I felt seen, noticed, like I mattered again. After years of living a quiet, simple life, Tony made me feel alive. You know that kind of warmth that feels too good to be true? That's exactly what it was. He started calling me the next day, just small talks at first. How was your day? Did you sleep well? Little things that meant everything to a heart that had been lonely for too long. Within weeks, I couldn't go a day without hearing his voice. He made me believe that love could come knocking when you least expect it. If you've ever been through a love that felt magical at first, you'll understand. And if you're new here and love stories that touch your soul, don't forget to subscribe, because this one goes deeper than it should have. The days that followed were like a dream. Tony had this way of making everything feel lighter. Even the silence between us felt comforting. We'd spend hours talking about nothing and somehow, it always felt like everything. He'd tell me stories about his childhood, about his plans for the future, about how he wanted a quiet life, far from chaos. I believed every word. He was gentle, thoughtful, always there when I needed him, until he wasn't. At first, it was little things, missed calls, short replies, sudden changes in plans. But he always had an excuse ready, and I always accepted it. That's what love does, doesn't it? It blinds you in the softest way possible. I remember one night when my brother looked at me across the dinner table and said, "Tina, are you sure about him?" His voice carried that kind of concern that comes from love, not judgment. But I laughed it off. I told him Tony was just busy, that he was under pressure at work. Deep down though, something inside me knew that wasn't the whole truth. But when Tony showed up at my door with flowers and that same disarming smile, all my doubts melted away. He'd hold my face in his hands, look into my eyes and say, "You're the only one who understands me." And for a woman who had spent most of her life waiting to be chosen, those words were everything. It's strange how the very thing that makes you feel safe can also be what destroys you later. Love can be beautiful, but it can also be the most dangerous illusion you'll ever believe in. If you've ever ignored the red flags just because your heart wanted to believe, you're not alone. I've been there. And if stories like these remind you of something you once felt, hit that like button, and stay with me till the end. You need to hear what happened next. It began with the small things, the kind of things you only notice when your heart starts to slow down long enough to listen. A text message that disappeared before I could read it. A name I didn't recognize flashing on his phone. A sudden distance in his eyes, like his mind was somewhere else when he smiled at me. At first, I told myself I was overthinking. That's what women do when they love too deeply. We explain away the ache in our chest as insecurity. But then one evening, while Tony was in the shower, his phone buzzed again. I wasn't trying to invade his privacy, but something in me said, "Look." The message said, "Did she find out yet?" My hands went cold. For a moment, I couldn't even breathe. I didn't know what it meant, but every word felt like a knife. When he came out, I asked about it, calmly, gently. He laughed, kissed my forehead, and said, "Babe, it's nothing. Just a joke with an old friend." But the tone in his voice didn't match his eyes. His smile was too tight, too rehearsed. That night, when I lay beside him, staring into the dark, I felt something I hadn't felt before: fear. Over the next few weeks, the lies started stacking up like cards in a fragile tower. He'd vanish for hours, come home smelling like a stranger, make promises he never kept. Every time I questioned him, he'd flip the blame, telling me I was too emotional, too suspicious, too needy. That's when I realized, he didn't love me. He loved how I loved him. It's a painful thing, to see the truth about someone you built your world around. To realize the hands you held were building walls instead of bridges. If you're listening to this and it reminds you of something you've been through, take it from me. Love should never make you question your worth. And if you want to hear stories that remind you how strong your heart truly is, make sure you subscribe. The next part of this story, it changes everything. It was late. One of those nights when the world feels too quiet, like it's holding its breath before something breaks. Tony hadn't come home. I'd called him a dozen times, each one going straight to voicemail. My heart wasn't racing anymore. It was just tired. Tired of waiting, tired of wondering, tired of pretending everything was okay. Then around midnight there was a knock on the door. Not Tony. 2 men stood there, one of them holding a badge. My stomach dropped before they even spoke. Are you Tina? Yes. We need to talk about Tony. That's when I learned the truth. Tony wasn't who he said he was. He was involved in something dark. Money, lies, dangerous people. They told me I needed to stay away, that he'd been under investigation for months. I felt like the floor had disappeared beneath me. Every memory, every word, every kiss suddenly felt like part of a story I didn't belong in. He hadn't loved me. He'd used me, to hide, to blend in, to have someone who believed in him when no one else did. I remember sitting on the edge of my bed that night, staring at the ring he'd given me. It wasn't real gold. It was cheap metal painted to shine. Just like him. The next morning, I packed my things and left. No głównie, no kluczy. Just silence and a heart learning how to beat again on its own. I cried the entire drive out of that city, but somewhere along the way, the tears stopped. The air felt cleaner, lighter. For the first time in months, I could breathe without fear. Love doesn't always end the way we imagine it. Sometimes it doesn't end, it frees you. If you've ever had to walk away from someone you thought you couldn't live without, you know that pain. But you also know this truth. One day, you wake up, and you feel peace instead of pain. And if you're still healing, stay with me. There's more to this story, because healing doesn't end here. It's been 2 years since that night, and sometimes I still catch myself wondering who Tony really was. The man I loved, or the stranger who wore his face. But the truth is, it doesn't matter anymore. What matters is who I became after he left. For a long time, I blamed myself, for trusting too easily, for ignoring the warnings, for holding on when I should have walked away. But healing taught me something that pain never could. Love isn't about losing yourself to keep someone else. It's about remembering who you are when everything falls apart. These days, my mornings are quiet. I wake up to sunlight, not anxiety. I make coffee, not excuses. And I've learned that peace isn't loud. It's the silence that finally feels safe. I still believe in love. Just not the kind that hurts to hold. I believe in gentle love. The kind that listens, the kind that stays. But before you can find that kind of love, you have to learn to give it to yourself first. So if you're listening to this, and you're in that place where your heart feels heavy, where you're afraid to start over, please hear me when I say this. You will be okay. One day, you'll look back and realize that losing someone wasn't the end of your story. It was the beginning of becoming who you were always meant to be. And if this story touched you, if it made you feel seen, even for a moment, don't leave without subscribing. Because here, we share more than stories. We share healing, truth, and the kind of hope that grows quietly after heartbreak. Thank you for staying till the end. Remember, love doesn't always save you. Sometimes it's what you need to escape from, so you can finally save yourself.